motion, never really breaking down the door to what I'm searching for. But I gotta keep on dreaming, so I keep the spark alive. Why do I keep believing when I've never seen the light? I say to myself, there's feelings out there just waiting to be found, waiting to be held. And I'm not gonna stop.
Did you guys know that Blender 4.0 had a change that makes it more realistic by default? Or that there's a new technology that is going to... going to expand the uses for 3D exponentially? Well, you would if you were on my free newsletter called This Week in 3D. It's an email from me once a week with 3 to 5 things that I found interesting that week from the world of 3D. So sometimes I share a new tool that I found, a remarkable tutorial, a new Blender feature, a news story that affects the industry. So click the link in the description, enter your email address, and then you will stay up to date on the world of 3D. It's always free and it's always written by me. Now, on to the tutorial. Welcome back to the Donut Show, where we make sad little donuts that we cannot eat. This is where we finished up at the end of part 1. We've got our nice looking donut, and now we're going to make that icing, which looks complex, but is actually fairly simple. Now, as I mentioned before, if you want to add an object, you go Shift A, right? And then you start with something that resembles what you're trying to create. But we already have something that resembles the exact shape we want to create. It's the donut, because we want the icing around the donut. So let's just reuse this information. So we can do that by duplicating the object. And if you don't know the hotkey for it, you could just go Object, and then you'd find it here where it says Shift D. So Shift D. Now, when you hit that, you are in a placement state, essentially. Like, it's duplicated and it's now saying, where do you want to place it? Now, in our case, and actually often, you don't actually want to change its placement. You want to duplicate it exactly where it was. So you can cancel the movement by hitting Escape or right-clicking. Now, when you do that, it looks like it's canceled the duplication, but you can see in your outliner, it has duplicated it. You've got 2 objects, but it's just in the exact same place, which is what we want. So first things first, we need to name them, or else we could get very confused very easily. So you can name an object by just double clicking it in the outliner and then just typing in the object. Other way you can name something, I'll just show you the second way. If you select the Taurus 0.001, that's your icing object. If you're in the 3D view, where your cursor, is over the 3D viewport, if you hit F2, that's another very quick way that you can name something without having to go up to the outliner to find your object. So with our icing object selected, let's go into edit mode by hitting Tab. So we want the icing on the top, which means this bottom half of our mesh here is redundant. Don't need it. So we want to delete it. So if we just dragged over the bottom here, you can see it looks like we've selected the bottom half of our donut, but if you were to move around, you would see, oh, we haven't actually. It's only selected, annoyingly, what is facing the camera. Where there's a mesh, it's not gone through the mesh. A lot of users find this annoying. I agree. Sometimes it seems like that would be the more default one that would make more sense. But anyway, don't want to argue. So if you want to select through a mesh, you can go up to here in your top navigation, toggle X-ray. If you turn that on, it's going to enable you to see through the mesh. And now when I drag over it, you can see that I have selected all through the mesh as I move around it. By the way, you might find it like when you're in this state, it's kind of hard to select. Like it's easy to kind of accidentally select what is above it. And depending on what you've got at your end, that might have happened already. So another way to easily just look directly on the side-on of your donut is to just click one of these like in your gizmo here, instead of just dragging around. Just do a single click on either the green one or the red one, the X or the Y. And now we're in that state. You can see it's flattened it, so it's put you in orthographic mode, which actually you can toggle to at any time, just over there, which just makes it easier to just do a single, all the way through the mesh, select. All right, okay. All right, so we want to delete that. So just hit the delete key. You get an extra option here of what do you want to delete: edges, faces. You want the vertices, that's everything. And now we have, if we go back to object mode, and then let's turn off toggle X-ray as well. And you can see it's working. We got half the donut on top of itself. But as you move around, you can see you get some flickering. Now, this flickering happens, and it's actually a very common, it's actually a good warning sign to you as an artist, because it means you've got faces on top of faces, and the 3D software doesn't know which face it wants to render, right? So it's like sometimes saying it's the front face, no, the back face, the front face, and there's no understanding. Sometimes you can actually spot it in TV shows and like VFX or like low budget stuff. You can see something flickering in the background, and I'm like, ooh, there it is, Z fighting. That's what it's called, Z fighting, or Z fighting if you're not American. So what we want to do is we want to give thickness to our icing. So we can do that with a solidify modifier. So adding another modifier, make sure you've got your icing selected, not your donut. And then here where you've got add modifier, we're going to go generate solidify. Okay. Now it's made it worse. It's actually added a thickness to our mesh there, but it's actually done at the wrong way. So it's with the normals. Yeah, what is it? It's trying to put the extra bit inside the donut. So we can change that by just changing the offset here in the solidifier settings. Just drag that all the way to 1. Some of you might have actually found that it was correct before, just depending on which way your normals were. If that's the case, keep it at -1, but everyone else keep it at 1. We just want to make sure it's actually outside. Okay. I also, let's just increase the thickness a little bit too. Let's go. Yeah, 0.025, that looks pretty good. And great, we've got what looks like a yarmulke on our donut, a perfectly straight edge little hat for our donut. So let's make this look more like icing. So the edge is wavy all the way around. So to do this, this is where we get into the fancy finger magic, because you're typing lots of keys. Anyway, go into edit mode, and we can see straight away that we can't see the mesh, and that's because the solidify modifier is obstructing our view. So these little boxes here, as I mentioned before, like this is to hide it from viewport. But if you want to just hide it from your edit mode, which is the state that we are in right now, the box next to it is the one that you uncheck, which means in object mode, when you're tabbed in object mode, you can still see it, but edit mode, it's it's temporarily hidden for you. So if I was to select one of these points here and move it down, you can see that it's working, but it would be, again, a lot of effort to go round and round and do these one by one. So we want to use that old familiar proportional fall off tool again. So proportional editing on, and now as I move it down, move it down, you can see that it's working, but it would be, again, a lot of effort to go round and round and do these one by one. So we want to use that old familiar proportional fall off tool again. So proportional editing on, and now now, as I move it down, let's just lower the slider way down here, and then let's pull this down. Okay, now we'll find issues. If we move to the side here, we can see the first issue we've discovered is that this is separating from our mesh here, and that's not what icing does. When it dribbles down, it follows the shape of the donut all the way down. So what we want to do is snap, undo it a number of times, snap the vertices to our donut underneath it, right? So for that, we need to turn on snapping up here. Okay, now there are a number of ways to snap in Blender. The default way is increment, which just means the like the grid floor there. Like if you were to just like move it around, you can see it's just snapping to the grid floor. Not helpful. But we want to snap it to the face. And now with face snapping enabled, if we move this down, we can see, let's just look here, that the bottom bit is snapping to the face, but as you might have seen, the top bits, the rest of essentially what is inside of our circle of influence with this proportional editing, that's not being affected. Only the little point that we had selected was affected. So that's not what we want either. Normally that would be enough, but in this particular case, we want to also snap individual elements too. And let's go face project. Now, when we pull this down, you should see that these are also no longer clipping through the donut. But still, we have issues. Why is that? Well, it is actually working correctly. We can see these are not going through the mesh. So why does it look like it is? The reason for that is that there's actually just not enough information here. So if we go side on, you can see, right? Like we've got this point here, and then we've got another point down
I close my eyes and imagine you're here. Will I find your warmth or fade into
here, and then we've got this long stretch in between, right? So that means that this part of the donut, oh gosh, that goes that goes around like that is just not, there's nothing to snap it to, essentially. So what we need to do to fix this is just add more geometry. So these little vertices here, we need more of those vertices. So we can do that by actually using the subdivision surface modifier, because although it is a modifier, you can apply the modifier. And the modifier currently is adding geometry, so let's just apply it. So to apply it, we just click this little drop down here next to the modifier and then go apply. Now, if we, I mean, nothing should have changed from this view because the same information is being displayed. But in edit mode, you should now see exponentially more faces, because here, where there was one face before, you can see there's now a lot more, right? 4x, okay, 4x. Okay, so now if we pull down, we should see it is snapping. And if we go into this mode, you can see that it's now conforming to the mesh in a much more snug way, because there's information there for it to use. Now this shading artifact here that we can see, this don't worry about that, we'll fix that in just a moment. But I need to show, because I've shown you like 4 things that we need to enable for this to work. I got to show you one more, because if I pull down and if I scroll up, you'll see something. Okay, if I was to click, we get this horrible problem here. And I've done this tutorial on enough, and enough people have hit this issue that I need to call it out specifically, because it seems to be a big point that a lot of people just don't know where to go from. What's happened is if we use what's it called, the circle of influence for our proportional editing, if that is so high, it's actually high enough to reach the mesh on the other side of the donut. And then because we've got snapping, it's now projecting that, snapping it to the front, which is creating this like something that's a nightmare to fix. I mean, in fact, it's easier just to start from scratch than to try to fix that. So if we want, sorry, there's a lot of noise. To fix this, we need to hide the part of the mesh that we don't want to be influenced by our proportional tool, right? So to do that, there is an easy way to do it. We can actually do it very precisely. So if with this middle bit of our donut here, if I just hold down Alt and then do a left click, as I mentioned before, that selects the ring, okay? And we could do that all the way up, but actually there's a little, I don't know if it's an Easter egg. It's kind of a cool tool that not many people know about. Control plus. That will enable the select more tool. And if you use Control plus, Control minus goes the other way, you can see that it's expanding out. So Control plus will just like select the next vertice along a chain, roughly speaking. And you can see we can very quickly select all the parts of the mesh that we don't need, right? Very cool. By the way, if Control plus doesn't work for you because you're on a laptop or something else, select more, less. You can also do it here. Anyways, all the parts of the mesh that we don't need, right? Very cool. By the way, if Control Plus doesn't work for you because you're on a laptop or something else, select more. Or less, you can also do it here. Anyways, to hide this part of the mesh, it's H. H for hide. So when you're in this state, it looks as though it's been deleted. It's very, sometimes you don't know where part of your mesh and then you forgot that you've got hide turned on. If parts of your mesh are hidden and you want to bring it back, it's Alt H. So H to hide and then Alt H to bring it back. Or if you can't remember it for whatever reason, you can also find it. Okay, it's underneath mesh. There we go. Mesh. Reveal hidden or hide selected. Okay, so that's the other way. But you can get my keyboard shortcut. It's in the link. It's free. Just use that and then you won't forget a lot of these handy shortcuts. All right, so now finally, after all that, after 4 different ways of and problems to explain, we can now take part of this mesh and drag it down and it will work correctly. Haha.
you now. Don't let me fade away. I can't let go. I need you now. Want you to stay. Take my hand, don't say goodbye. Without you, I can't get by. We were strong, now we're undone. I can't face this on my own. Take my hand, don't say goodbye. Without you, I can't get by. We were strong, now we're undone. I can't face this on my own.
Baby, can't you hear my call? Is it loud enough? Don't wanna fall. You know I need you. Can't do it on my own. Baby, can't you hear my call? Is it loud enough? Don't wanna fall. Baby, can't you hear my call? Hear my call. Is it loud enough? Loud enough. Don't wanna fall. You know I need you. I can't do it on my own. Baby, can't you hear my call? Hear my call. Is it loud enough? Don't wanna fall.
So now we get to now finally be an artist and go like, what sort of, edge or what sort of icing do I want to make this look like? So what I'm doing here, by the way, is I'm hitting G to pull it down, and then I'm just single middle click, and then because my cursor is closest to the Z axis, it's now snapping it to the Z axis. So that's why I mentioned before that it's really handy. You don't have to think of the letter and type it in. You just go in the general direction you want to go, and then just tap the middle click of the which is your scroll wheel, right? Middle click. It's such a weird button that you have to call it out. It's the scroll wheel button, because it's like no other application seems to use it besides scrolling. But Blender is like, no, we're going to use it for like 90% of the operations. is going to be middle click. But anyways, as you can see, I'm not paying particularly too much attention to it, but I'm just making a wavy looking shape around it. You might also want to make some bits that go the opposite direction, right? And then maybe pull, so you've got like big shapes as well as medium shapes and some small shapes. Big, medium, small. It's the recipe for appealing design. Big, medium, and small details. But I digress. By the way, I should mention, if you're stuck, don't feel bad, because there was certainly a lot of finickiness going on with this donut here, and we're definitely in the steep part of that curve at the moment. Do make use of my Discord if you are stuck. I created it literally so that people could get instantaneous help. I don't have any other benefit for it, so it's there so that you can find help. Link is in the description, and there's like donut help chat room where you can post screenshots of your problem and then people can help each other out. So do make use of that. Now, our shading issue here, this darkened edge, is actually going to fix itself by fixing another issue. So it's a two birds, one solution kind of problem. This 90-degree edge here for this icing, not ideal. Everybody knows that a real icing would create like a rounded edge there, right? So we can fix that just by adding another subsurf modifier. Because you might remember I mentioned, like, yes, if you've got 3 vertices, it'll create like another vertex here and another vertex here, but it'll also like round it out. It'll pull this one back, so you end up with a rounded corner. So right here in your modifier stack, we're going to go add modifier, generate subdivision surface. Now, the order of these does matter, okay? You want your solidify at the top and the subdivision after it. So Blender works top to bottom, and it's important it's in this way because you want the extrusion to happen first, and then in order to round that edge, it has to happen as a secondary step. So solidify on top, subdivision underneath. Now, whilst we're here and we're looking at the close-up, nice little profile of this edge of this icing, another issue to call out, you can see it's got this this shape that goes around. Yes, so far so good. But then it goes up. And it's like, it would be better if it went around and then tucked in and touched the edge of it, because that would look more like real liquid would. So we can solve that by just changing one of the settings in the solidify modifier. It's not one of those things that you would figure out or know where it is. It's just over time you learn where some of these settings are. But essentially here, the edge data. So we want to change the edge data to say that before you do the solidify step, add a crease on the inner part right here. If we increase this all the way to 1, it now creates a sharpened edge just on that inner part there. So the rest of it is a smoothed edge, but the middle one, there's a crease, so it's making a sharp edge there. And it just gives it just a little bit more realism. Just looks a little bit closer to what you would imagine real icing would do. Okay, now for the cool bit. All right, so if you look at reference of donuts, right, yes, you've got these little wavy bits, but where the icing is really liquidy, it'll often break off from this wave here, and it'll create a trail that goes down underneath the donut, right? It just sort of drips all the way down. Whoops, bumped the microphone. So we can do that, but not the way we were doing it before. If we just took one of these points and then like dragged it all the way down like that, there wouldn't be enough information there, right? You can see you just get this like stretched look and it doesn't look great, okay? So essentially we need to give it more information, and we couldn't just do it by like adding more and more subdivision surfaces. We need to actually like break this shape here and create a new shape that goes down. So we need to extrude. So if I select this vertice and then the one next to it by holding down Shift, I don't think I mentioned it, but yeah, if you want to select two things at once, it's Shift select. Anyways, so if we select two vertices like that, we want to extrude it downward by hitting E. So when you tap E, it's similar to G in that you're in a placement state now, saying where do you want to place this? So I'm going to move it down to, yeah, like about there where I want the trail to stop, and I'm just going to do click, left click, and it's now placed it there. Now, it's hard to see it, but if I just switch to wireframe, you can see what it's doing. So it's created this breakaway shape here, an entirely new face that's completely separate to what we've got there currently. And what this means is if we go to object mode, you can see it's not just like continuing this form here, it's pulled it down, right? Which is exactly what we want. And in fact, I want it to go even further than that. So I'm going to select those two vertices, and I'm going to pull it down again, and then I'll do it again. And the reason I've done this 1, 2, 3 is that this detail here is important so that it conforms to the shape of the donut. Because if there's not enough, you're going to have that clipping issue that I I showed you earlier. So that's pretty good. And now we're going to do it again. Originally in my earlier versions of the donut, I only did like one of these, but then I noticed that in the render, the final render, it's often the most interesting part of the donut. So now I'm thinking, yeah, just do it all the way around the donut. Just add the bit that looks cool. Add more of that. So here, so wherever there's essentially like a big dip is what I'm looking for. Like where the liquid would sort of build up and then like the surface tension there would be just too much and then it would break away. And it would go down underneath like that. And we'll do another one here, why not? Like that, and down, and down. And that's pretty good. Haha, lovely. So that concludes finally this heavy part of the tutorial. So if you are ready to watch the next part, hope you're not giving up. You can click there on the screen and I'll see you. Congrats. You didn't give up. You made it to part 4. You clicked on the next part of the video. There's always like less viewers each video as you go down. So you're here. Well done. Thumbs up. As you can tell by the title of this video, we're going to learn about sculpting. But first, I should call out, if you have a problem with your mesh now, those problems can be amplified the further you go along. So it helps to do a technical check now. Make sure you don't have any problems before we move along. So to look for it, go into edit mode. And first of all, by the way, if you can't see that middle part of your mesh, it's because you remember we temporarily hid it. So you can bring it back by hitting Alt-H, and that will bring back the rest of the mesh. And then we're looking for issues with the mesh, like right here. So this is a really common problem following this tutorial, because when you're projecting parts of the mesh, if it was like side on to the camera, it will project it that way, and then you can have like overlapping parts of the mesh. So that creates this artifact here, which will be exaggerated when we add more detail to it. So we just want to drag that back. So turn on snapping, and I'll keep proportional turned off, and then I'm just going to move this back over here just to move each of these points. Points back. Another very common problem is you might have parts that have separated from your mesh. Now you can quickly fix this if you just like selected the point and then hit G to move it. When you're in that state, it's also snapping it to the mesh. Now you could do that all the way along, like select, tap G, then click, select, tap G, then click. But that's, anybody's got time for that. Let's make Blender do the work for us. So there's a tool it's just designed for this, and it's called the shrink wrap modifier. So over to our trusty modifier stack, we're going to add yet another modifier. So add modifier. It's not under generate, it's under deform, which we haven't accessed before. New modifiers. Ooh, the one we're looking for is shrink wrap. And first of all, hasn't done anything because it needs to know what the target is. What is the mesh that we're shrink wrapping our mesh to? So with this little eyedropper tool, you can see when you've clicked it, my cursor's changed to an eyedropper. And now if I hover over objects, I got the name of it. So I want to click on the object that is the donut, and now it's snapped to the donut and made it worse. Why, Andrew, would you make us do that? Remember, the order of your modifier stack matters. So the reason this happened is because we've done it after the solidify mod. So if it works top to bottom, we want the shrink wrap to happen before any of the extrusion happens. So now that it's there, it's correct. And this is what it looks like before, and this is after. And it's subtle, right? And you'll probably see this across your mesh, like little subtle changes where maybe it just separated off the mesh, which wasn't quite a perfect alignment, but this will just correct that. So great, we don't need this here now. We can just apply it because it was just a once-off operation, and now all our mesh should be perfectly flat. And assuming you haven't got any other issues going on, again, make sure you use my Discord. If you do have issues and you need someone to help make use of the community. So use that and post your problem, and I'm sure people can help out. All right, so Oh, we want to do some sculpting. Now, why do we want to sculpt? Well, because if you look at reference photos of donuts with icing on them, you'll see that icing is obviously a liquid, and liquid does weird things. One of the weird things that it does is that it will pool in certain areas. It's not like a uniform amount all the way on it. So the most obvious being like at the end of this trail here, there would be more that would accumulate at the end there. And I think the reason for it is that because it's a viscous fluid, once it runs out of enough fluid, there's not enough to kind of push it forward, but there's enough for it to build up. So you would have like a buildup here on each of these ends, but you would also have buildups all along the edge. And you can see it in reference photos. Like here, we've got this like clear, was it like a glaze? And basically the areas there where it looks whiter, that's a thickened area. So we essentially want to replicate that across our donut. So we can't do that currently. Like if you go into edit mode, we don't have any mesh to work with because the extrusion, the thickened part is happening via this modifier. So we need to make the modifier real. So again, we're just going to apply it. Drop down, apply. Now in edit mode, we have that part of the mesh to work with. So we could, if you wanted to, come in here and like select the points that you want to add, you know, a bulge to, and then very carefully come in and tap G, and then, oh, I've got snapping turned on, turn that off. Pull this out, right? And go like that and go, yep, there's a little bulge there, but that's very tedious. Does is that it will pool in certain areas. It's not like a uniform amount all the way on it. So the most obvious being like at the end of this trail here, there would be more that would accumulate at the end there. And I think the reason for it is that because it's a viscous fluid, once it runs out of enough fluid, there's not enough to kind of push it forward, but there's enough for it to build up. So you would have like a buildup here on each of these ends, but you would also have buildups all along the edge. And you can see it in reference photos. Like here, we've got this like clear, was it like a glaze? And basically the areas there where it looks whiter, that's a thickened area. So we essentially want to replicate that across our donut. So we can't do that currently. Like if you go into edit mode, we don't have any mesh to work with because the extrusion, the thickened part is happening via this modifier. So we need to make the modifier real. So again, we're just going to apply it. Drop down, apply. Now in edit mode, we have that part of the mesh to work with. So we could if you wanted to, come in here and like select the points that you want to add, a bold to. two, and then very carefully come in and tap G, and then, oh, I've got snapping turned off, turn that off. Pull this out, right? And go like that and go, yep, there's a little bulge there, but that's very tedious to first select a point, then tap a key to move it. It's very tedious. So that's really like, you just need to use another tool to do the job. So edit mode is one tool, and it's good for like very precise things when you need to get precise things, but for more like organic shapes, more freehand stuff, that's where sculpting comes in. So at the top here, we've just been flipping between object and edit mode, but the one underneath it is sculpt mode. So when we go into that mode, you'll see that we have on the left-hand side all of these tools that appear. And I mean, this isn't a sculpting like tutorial, really. We're just really going to scratch the surface, but they do different things, different sculpting things. Like, let's just use the default tool here. Can't really see much happening. Let's just turn up the strength and the size of it. Like, it just pulls out that part of it. And even that quick little one stroke, imagine if you had to select each of those points and pull them out one by one. Like, that's why this tool is the appropriate tool for this kind of job, right? Because it's just very quickly going to enable us to add lots of complex shape. Very cool. So the tool that we're looking for is actually, it's this one, the inflate brush, which is just conveniently the I hotkey, inflate. By the way, if you want to change the size of brushes in Blender, I mean, you've got these ones here, you've also got the strength slider here, but there is a hotkey just to change the size of the brush with F. So F to change the size of the brush, and you just pull out with your cursor to make it bigger, and then pull in to reduce it, and then do a single left click to confirm. You can also change the strength with Shift F. So Shift F, pull out, click, and then Shift F, pull in, click. Anyways, so if I was to draw on this, you can see that I'm inflating that edge. I can also inflate here, but you very quickly realize, like, look at that. Look at that. What is that, right? The eye is going to see that. It's a pro tip. Your eye is like, if you're going low res, don't go low res for things that are round, because your eye is very quickly going to spot low poly things. Actually, just last night I was playing Spider-Man, the Miles Morales one, and there was like this coffee cup that was on a table, and then you walk, and it looks fine, like as a background asset, but then part of it, the mission, you had to go up and read something on the table, and you had to get close to this coffee cup, and it was like 8 vertices. It just looked like almost looked like a nut on a wheel of a car, right? Just like that jagged. So, anyways, what I'm saying is this is a rounded form, so we need more information. We need more detail to sculpt on. The reason this is jagged and the reason there's not enough detail here is that just even though we have a subsurf modifier, a subdivision modifier, it's applying it after we do the sculpt mode. So when you're in sculpt mode, it's still just using your raw mesh here, and then it does this as a secondary step. So if we want to sculpt into this detail, we need to apply this. So I'm going to use more than one. I'm going to use 2 because I want to have even more detail. So importantly, by the way, if you're applying a subdivision modifier, even though you've got 2 levels here, it will always use just the viewport. So your render amount here could be whatever, but when you hit apply, it's just going to apply whatever is in the viewport. So I'm going to go 2 levels and hit apply. Now look at this. Whoo! We have 16 times the detail because we had level 1, which would be 4x, a 4x multiply. And then 4x of 4x, 16. So we have 16 times the vertices to play with. So now when we go into sculpt mode, look at it now. When we sculpt, look at that. So much more room to work with and much more fun. So now that I'm in that state, I'm going to just do little circles with this brush on each of these points here. And the reason I'm doing like little circles like this is that by default, the stroke state is, space. You can switch it to airbrush if you want, and then you can just click and hold it there. But I find that to actually be like harder to control. So I just keep it in space mode and then just do like little circles. And then that enables you to just kind of continue adding more pressure as you move your mouse.
That you never had a part in, making this so miserable. 'Cause I waste my time hitting your same line. You're gonna hit decline. I already know. I take what's mine. That's my peace of mind. I don't need no signs. I already know. I gotta let you go. Cause I waste my time hitting your same line. You're gonna hit decline. I already know. So I'll take what's mine. That's my peace of mind. I don't need no signs. I already know. I gotta let you go. It's not worth the mess all in my head. It's not worth the mess all in my head. It's not worth the mess all in my head. And I could choose to believe that you're so better off without me. That I'm the one to leave behind. But it is more to do with me leaving you. 'Cause I know that's just a lie. 'Cause I waste my time hitting your same line. You're gonna hit decline. I already know. So I'll take what's mine.
actually be like harder to control. So I just keep it in space mode and then just do like little circles, and then that enables you to just kind of continue adding more pressure as you move your mouse. So a little circle like that, and there you go. Very quickly, already we have a more interesting looking shape across it. So another brush, another tool, I guess you call, is it a brush or is it, I think these technically are called brushes. But anyways, another one that you use all the time is grab, and conveniently it's the hotkey G. And what this does is just like pushing clay with your finger. It's like, it's really cool. And the reason I'm doing this is I'm actually just exaggerating the design, because that is what makes appealing design. It's exaggerating the addition and subtraction that you see in a shape, even though in the real world you might not see this like tapered thing like that. Because it's got this bulbous end, you want to draw more attention to that kind of globule at the end there. And to do that, yeah, if you just make this a little bit tapered using this tool, it can do that. And we get to learn about a new tool in Blender, which is the whole point of this tutorial. So, yeah. All right, pull this around. Just click and drag. I can change the shape, size of the brush with F. And you've got more time than me, so maybe make this better than what I'm doing really quickly. But just get, generally a shape like that, and it should look a little nicer. Okay, so now let's do that raised edge all the way around the rim of this. Now, in previous versions of this tutorial, I said just use the inflate brush and then just like draw across it. The problem with this is that this is so imprecise, and you can accidentally like draw over another bit, and then you look at it side on and you get these like noticeable like divots across the donut. And it's not very, it's very hard to do because you keep like accidentally clicking off it and then on it, and you get this like jagged like dig, 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 dig. It's not very appealing, the point is. So let's go back. We can learn about another tool. It's another excuse to learn about another tool, and that tool is called the mask tool. So it's actually in the list here, but I never remember what it is. It's just hit M for mask, and it's this one. And what this enables you to do is if you just draw on it, you get this grade shape, right? And then when you're using another tool, like say you switch to the inflate brush now, and if you draw over this, let me just increase this. Yeah, if you drew over this, you can see it's applying an inflation to everything except the area that is dark. And that's how you can create like, you know, a skin lesion on a zombie or something like that. So a mask is very useful in sculpting, used a lot. And we're going to use it in just this case. What we're going to do is mask out just this area along the rim there. And then we're going to apply a constant inflate value to just the area that we've masked. So first use the mask tool. Mask. And it doesn't really make sense to use like a half opaque mask, so we're going to set the strength all the way to 1, and then I'll use a brush size about here. So essentially, where do I want the inflation? Like, do I want this much inflation on the rim? No, probably something about here. And then I'm just going to paint a darkened value all the way across it. I just want to make sure that it's, you know, fairly even. It doesn't have to be completely perfect, but fairly even across it. And I obviously don't want it to be in this part because that, you know, the liquid has flowed all the way down and it's broken the trail and it's gone down there. So I don't want any raised area there. And again, I apologize if this was like tedious, but it's a way to learn Blender piece by piece. Okay, hey, speaking of which, I forgot. With the sculpt tools in Blender, for whatever reason, it has assumed by default that you might want to sculpt on the other side of your mesh. So you can see I've got this smear here, and that's because somewhere I was painting over here, I went through the mesh and it painted on the other side of the mesh over there. Very annoying. So I can undo it. It's just easier than like repainting that whole thing. And what you want to do with your mask tool is underneath brush, set it to front faces only. And that means when you paint, it should mean that as you draw, it could still happen, just be careful, but it should happen less. It shouldn't happen like on the opposite side of the same mesh. Anyways, it should happen less. By the way, I didn't call it out because it's not essential, but if you do ever want to isolate and only see the selected object, / is the isolation mode. So / on the number pad or the actual normal keyboard will pull you in and out of that state. Anyway, so now with the mask brush, with front faces only enabled, I can paint along it, and it should happen less, essentially. All right, I don't know what to say, but this doesn't take long once you've set it up. And assuming you've got the strength of 1, by the way, you don't want to have areas with like half opaque, right? Because we want to have a constant value across it as we inflate it. And we should get a nice raised edge that goes all the way along the donut. Okay, great. Just clean it up if you got any areas that look a little untidy, a little unkempt. Yep. Awesome. All right. So, as I mentioned, the mask will actually mask out the area, so you can't paint on it. We obviously want to only paint on the area that we mask. So we want to invert it by just hitting Control I, same hotkey as Photoshop, etc. And then, obviously, if we went to the inflate brush and then we just painted, like, yes, we're only now painting onto that area, but it also doesn't solve our problem of like different values across it. So we want to apply a uniform inflation on just these areas. So there is a tool in the sculpt tools called, where is it? Mesh filter. So I will be honest, it's probably the laziest implementation of a tool in Blender. Like, mesh filters, they're not really well documented. You kind of have to just learn how they work. But unlike all these other brushes here, the way this one works is it's applying a uniform value to the entire mesh. So it doesn't actually matter where you click on the mesh, it's going to apply it. And it's applying what is in the filter types listed here. So if I just click, this is the other thing I have to learn. If I drag to the right, I'm inflating. If I drag to the left, I'm deflating and sort of subtracting the opposite direction. You just kind of have to learn that that's how this specific tool works. My theory is, by the way, to go on a rant, ZBrush's user experience and interface is so arcane, so badly hodgepodge together from ideas over the last 2 decades. They never had any thought in the process. They just lumped it all in there. And Blender's sculpting tools competes with that. So they're like, hey, yeah, the filter tools, yeah, they're not the easiest to understand, but at least we're not ZBrush. That's my theory. It's my working theory I'm going with. But anyways, point is now that we're in this, you could see we're applying a uniform value to everything. Hooray for us. I might also, I'm going to set the strength of this to 0.1, and that just means that as I move the cursor, it's applying less of a value for the movement, so I can use smaller movements. The other thing though is this is a little like, it almost looks, if we go into object mode, it looks like a tube almost around the edge of it. It's not very nice. It basically, the edge that we've got here is too hard, so we can smooth out that edge by using mask, smooth mask. Okay, now if we use the inflate, just tilt to the right a little bit. So it's applying less of a value for the movement, so I can use smaller movements. The other thing though is this is a little like, it almost looks, if we go into object mode, it looks like a tube almost around the edge of it. It's not very nice. It basically, the edge that we've got here is too hard, so we can smooth out that edge by using mask, smooth mask. Okay, now if we use the inflate, just tilt to the right a little bit. I'm just gonna go with that. Let's go object mode and see how that looks. That's pretty good. I might actually go just a little bit more, just exaggerate it slightly more. There we go. Great. So yeah, that's roughly it. Now there's a little bit of artifacting there because the the way the mask works is it's kind of that feathering thing. It's not very exact, and it's kind of got some values in between it. So we can smooth that out in sculpt mode by first of all just clearing the mask and then using the smooth tool. By default, it's too high, so just turn it down. Down, and I'm just going to smooth that edge, and that'll just sort of clear up some of this artifacting. It's a little too high. For whatever reason, the smooth tool, which also you can access at any point when you're in sculpt mode just by holding down shift, and it'll temporarily invoke the smooth tool, and it'll use the value that is on the smooth tool. So you'll be in this mode, and then you hold down shift, and it'll actually not use this value, but the value that's on the smooth tool. Again, ZBrush is the competitor, so some things are a little weird here. Anyways, so it's a little too high. Just turn it down, and now I've got a nice value. And I'm just smoothing this out to just clear up some of the artifacting all the way around the mesh. Ba-doop, boop, boop. And that's it. Lovely. Hey, if you've made it this far, 3D is in the cards. It's for you, because we've done some fairly complex things. So if you're a beginner and you're just getting started in Blender, congrats, because it is a steep learning curve, but you have learned some very complex modeling and some sculpting. So congrats, you've made it this far. Why not continue on the series?